You ever notice how something as simple as control can completely change how a man shows up in life? Not just in the gym, not just in business, but in the most private, personal moments that nobody talks about openly. And yet, almost every man quietly thinks about it. How do I last longer? Why don't I feel as in control as I used to? Is this just age or something I'm missing? And the strange part is, most men look everywhere except where the answer actually is. I'm Dr. Elena Hart, and welcome back to Dr. Elena Hart, Sexual Health and Wellness. And today, we're talking about something incredibly simple, but massively misunderstood: Kegel exercises. Now I know what you're thinking. You've heard this before, maybe in passing, maybe in a meme, maybe in some random fitness advice that never really made sense. But here's the truth: most people never explain properly. Kegels are not just an exercise, they are control training. And if you learn how to actually do them correctly, you are not just improving a muscle group, you are changing how your entire body responds under pressure. But let's start from the beginning, because most men are already doing this wrong without even knowing it. See, the biggest misconception is this idea that strength alone is the goal. Squeeze harder, do more reps, hold longer. That's what people assume. But the pelvic floor doesn't work like your biceps. It's not about brute force. It's about precision and awareness and control. So let me ask you something simple. Have you ever finished urinating, walked away, and then felt a small leak afterward? Or noticed that things don't feel as firm or responsive as they used to? Or maybe you've experienced moments where control just doesn't feel fully yours anymore? Most men dismiss these things. They think it's normal. They think it's aging. They think it's stress. But what if it's actually something else entirely? What if your body is simply undertrained in one of its most important internal systems? Because deep inside your pelvis, there is a group of muscles that most men never consciously activate, never train, never even think about: the pelvic floor. And yet, these muscles are involved in some of the most important functions in your body: bladder control, erection quality, ejaculation control, orgasm intensity, even stability in core movement. Let that sink in. A single muscle group, quietly influencing multiple aspects of your performance and confidence. And here's where it gets interesting, because unlike your chest or arms, you can't see these muscles. You can't flex them in the mirror, and nobody ever taught you how to properly engage them. So most men go their entire lives using them randomly, without awareness, without control, without training, and that creates a gap between how the body could perform and how it actually performs. Now imagine closing that gap, not with medication, not with quick fixes, but with internal control. That's what Kegel training actually is. But here's the problem. Most people do it wrong. And when you do it wrong, you don't just waste time, you build confusion in your body. So let's slow this down and get it right. First, you need to understand what you are actually trying to activate. Imagine inside your body there is a supportive sling, like a hammock, stretching from the front of your pelvis to the back. This hammock supports your bladder, supports your internal organs, and plays a huge role in sexual function. Now imagine that hammock becoming stronger, tighter, more responsive. What happens? Support improves, control improves, response improves, and yes, sexual performance improves. But not in a fantasy way, in a mechanical way. Because erections are not only about blood flow, they are also about retention, holding pressure, maintaining structure, and the pelvic floor plays a major role in that process. When these muscles contract properly, they help maintain rigidity, they support endurance, they improve control, but again, only if you're using them correctly. So how do you actually find them? Because this is where most people get lost. There's a simple way to identify them, and I want you to pay attention here. One way is to imagine stopping urine midstream. But listen carefully. This is only for identification, not practice, just awareness. That internal lift sensation you feel, that's the pelvic floor. Another way is to imagine preventing gas from escaping, that subtle inward tightening, that lift upward. That's also the same muscle group. And another cue is that reflex you feel when you suddenly get cold, that full body internal tightening. That's the closest natural activation most people recognize. Now here's the critical part. When you contract these muscles, nothing else should move. No tightening in your stomach, no clenching in your thighs, no squeezing in your glutes. If those areas are engaging, you are compensating, not isolating. And that's the mistake that ruins progress, because Kegels are not about tension everywhere. They are about isolation, clean activation, and release. Now let's talk about how to actually train this, because simplicity is what builds consistency. Start by lying down. This removes pressure from other muscles. It allows your body to focus. Now take a slow breath in, and as you exhale, gently lift the pelvic floor, like a soft internal elevator going upward. Hold for 1 or 2 seconds, then release completely. That release matters just as much as the contraction, because control is not just squeezing, it's also letting go. That is 1 repetition, no force, no strain, just awareness. Now repeat, slowly, intentionally. 10 repetitions. That's it. Then rest. And later in the day, do another 10. And again later, another 10. You are not trying to exhaust the muscle. You are teaching it communication. Because right now, for most men, that communication is weak, inconsistent, unconscious, and over time, with consistency, something begins to change. You start feeling the muscle more clearly. The connection becomes sharper. The activation becomes easier, more automatic. And then something subtle happens. You start noticing differences in daily life. Better bladder control, less leakage, more awareness during physical activity, and eventually, changes in sexual function, stronger response, better control, improved endurance, and even heightened sensation. But here's something most people don't expect. The improvement is not just physical, it's psychological, because when a man feels control over his body, it changes how he carries himself, how he thinks, how he reacts. Control builds confidence, and confidence changes behavior. But I need to be honest with you here. Not every man should be aggressively training Kegels, because in some cases, the issue is not weakness, it's tightness, overactivity, excess tension in the pelvic floor. And in those cases, more contraction can actually worsen symptoms. Things like discomfort, pressure, urinary urgency, or pain during release, if that is present. The focus should shift toward relaxation and balance, not strengthening. This is why awareness matters more than intensity, because your body is not something to force, it's something to understand and respond to intelligently. Now, once you've built basic control, something interesting happens. You start integrating it without thinking. While sitting, while standing, while walking, even in moments of stress or focus, it becomes part of your internal system, and that's the real goal. Not exercise, integration. Because when control becomes unconscious, that's when performance stabilizes. That's when consistency appears. And that's when men notice the biggest difference in their experience. Not because something external changed, but because something internal finally became aligned. And once that happens, you stop chasing quick fixes. You stop looking for shortcuts because you realize something important. The body already has the system. It just needed to be trained properly. And now you know where to start. So don't rush it. Don't overdo it. Don't force it. Build awareness first, then build control, then build consistency. Because this is not about immediate transformation. It's about long-term mastery. And when that mastery develops, everything else becomes easier. Performance, endurance, confidence, control, they all connect, and they all come from one place, inside you. And if this is the first time you're hearing it explained this clearly, then understand this is just the beginning. Because there is a deeper level to this, where breath, rhythm, and nervous system control all connect into one system. And once you understand that, you don't just train muscles anymore, you train response. But we'll talk about that next.